Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmilitan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So welcome to our ongoing study of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 9 and we're looking first at chapter 17. The dynasties of the sons of Pururava. So continuing from the previous chapter, we hear about Pururava. Now Maharaj Parikshit is told, Sukadeva Goswami tells him, now hear about the dynasty of Kshatravrida, Kshatravidas and his sons, different kings. Okay. So then we're told in text number 4, we're told about Dear Gautama had a son named Dhanvantari, who was the inaugurator of the medical science and an incarnation of Lord Vasudeva, the enjoyer of the results of sacrifice. One who remembers the name of Dhanvantari can be released from all disease. Jai, let's all remember the name of Dhanvantari and get relief from all disease. And then chapter goes on. The son of Dhanvantari was Ketuman, his son was Bhimarat, the son of Bhimarat was Devodas, the son of Devodas was Duman, also known as Pratardana. And goes on, mentions the name of different kings. We're here, text number 7 says, Alarka, the son of Juman, reigned over the earth for 66,000 years. My dear King Parikshit, no one other than him has reigned over the earth for so long as a young man. We're not told how he did it, but anyway, Alarka ruled the earth 66,000 years. Must have been such a yuga to live so long. Then more kings. We hear about Sukumara, the emperor of the entire world. So some kings had very powerful kingdoms. Then more kings are mentioned, more sons, more kings, and they had their sons. In text number 12, we hear, from Chitrakrit was born a son named Shantaraj, a self-realized soul who performed all kinds of Vedic ritualistic ceremonies and therefore did not beget any progeny. The sons of Raji were 500, all very powerful. So it seems that if you do Vedic ritualistic ceremonies, you don't beget progeny. I don't know how it connects, but this is how we're told. Then text 13, on the request of the demigods, Raji killed the demons and thus returned the kingdom of heaven to Lord Indra. But Indra, fearing such demons as Prahlad, returned the kingdom of heaven to Raji and surrendered himself at Raji's lotus feet. Upon Raji's death, Indra begged Raji's sons for the return of the heavenly planet. They did not return it, however, although they agreed to return Indra's shares in ritualistic ceremonies. In the purport, Prabhupada said, Raji conquered the kingdom of heaven, and therefore when Indra, the heavenly king, begged Raji's sons to return it, they refused, because they had not taken the heavenly kingdom from Indra, but had inherited it from their father. They considered it their paternal property. Why then should they return it to the demigods? You can see they get attached to having the kingdom. It was given to them by the demigods. Demigods wanted it back. They didn't want to give it back. So thereafter Brihaspati, the spiritual master of the demigods, offered oblations in the fire so that the sons of Raji would fall from moral principles. When they fell, Lord Indra killed them easily because of their degradation. Not a single one of them remained alive. This very instructive, the importance of following moral principles. Very, very important for all of us to observe strict moral principles. And then, so long as we're not subject to degradation, then we can do wonderful service on behalf of Krishna. So very instructive. All right, then more kings are mentioned, and their sons, and their offspring. Finally, final verse in the chapter, from Haryabala came a son named Sahadev, and from Sahadev came Hina. The son of Hina was Jayasena, and the son of Jayasena was Sankriti. The son of Sankriti was a powerful and expert fighter named Jaya. These kings were the members of the Kshatravrida dynasty. Now let us describe to you the dynasty of Nahusha. So that's the end of chapter 17. We'll go on to chapter 18. King Yayati regains his youth. Okay, text number 1. Sukadeva Goswami said, O King Parikshit, as the embodied soul has 6 senses, King Nahusa had 6 sons, named Yati, Yayati, Samyati, Ayati, Viyati, and Kriti. Text number 2. When one enters the post of the king or head of the government, one cannot understand the meaning of self-realization. Knowing this, Yati, the eldest son of Nahusa, did not accept the power to rule, although it was offered by his father. Another very instructive point. If we are serious about self-realization, it is better not to accept some position of responsibility, particularly the post of a king or head of the government. We'll read Prabhupada's purport. Self-realization is the prime objective of human civilization, and it is regarded seriously by those who are situated in the mode of goodness and have developed the Brahminical qualities. Kshatriyas are generally endowed with material qualities conducive to gaining material wealth and enjoying sense gratification. But those who are spiritually advanced are not interested in material opulence. Indeed, they accept only the bare necessities for a life of spiritual advancement and self-realization. It is specifically mentioned here that if one enters political life, especially in the modern day, one loses the chance for human perfection. Nonetheless, one can attain the highest perfection if one hears Srimad Bhagavatam. This hearing is described as Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Maharaj Parikshit was involved in politics, but because at the end of his life he heard Srimad Bhagavatam from Sukadeva Goswami, he attained perfection very easily. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore suggested Stani stita shuti gatam tanvan manobir ye prayaso jita jitopi asitais trilokyam. Regardless of whether one is in the mode of passion, ignorance, or goodness, if one regularly hears Srimad Bhagavatam from the self-realized souls, one is freed from the bondage of material involvement. So very nice purport here by Srila Prabhupada. Meaning is very clear, very important, that even though one may be doing different duties, taking on different responsibilities, like in politics or managerial positions, which are all required. We do need people to be managers, we need people to take these responsibilities, but they can keep their Krishna consciousness if they regularly hear the Shastra from the devotees. So self-realization is, of course, very important. Prabhupada's prime objective of human civilization. So we want to be careful about utilizing this human life properly. Don't waste this opportunity which we have. Having achieved this rare human life, we want to use it for the service of Lord Krishna. Of course, people have other ambitions. Some people like to take up responsibility and manage and go into politics and so on. Okay, you can do that. Prabhupada quotes the verse which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu referred to from Srimad Bhagavatam. Stani stita. You can stay in whatever position you are in. Whatever you may be in the mode of passion, working as a Kshatriya. You may be in the mode of ignorance as a Vaishya or Sudra. It doesn't mean that in order to become self-realized, you have to be only in the mode of goodness. Because of work, you have to work. We have to do certain duties on behalf of Krishna. But we have to always remember the goal of life. which is self-realization. We don't want to come back again to the material world. We do want to make some success in this life. So, very carefully, we have to work in this world. We're working, taking on responsibilities, doing things like entering into politics or a big manager or whatever. At the same time, we do want to remember Krishna. We need to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. And the great kings in the past, they did that. Kings like Maharaj Prataparudra, regularly they were hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And you can see when Maharaj Prataparudra came to massage Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during the Rath Yatra, Maharaj Prataparudra could recite the whole Gopi Gita from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 31. The Gopi Gita is there, and Maharaj Prataparudra could recite it all for the pleasure of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So although he was a king, he did not neglect hearing scriptures, and he could recite also. Okay, we'll go ahead. Text number 3. Because Nahusa, the father of Yayati, molested Indra's wife, Sachi, who then complained to Agastya and other Brahmanas, these saintly Brahmanas cursed Nahusa to fall from the heavenly planets and be degraded to the status of a python. Consequently, Yayati became the king. So this is described in scriptures how Nahusa had taken the post of Indra. Indra was doing atonement for killing demons like Vritrasura, because he killed some Brahmana demons like Vritrasura. So Indra had to do atonement for the sins of killing. So he was away for 1,000 years, hiding in the fiber of a lotus flower. And at that time, Nahusa was given the post of king of heaven. And he became corrupt, he became polluted. And he saw Indra's wife, who was a beautiful woman named Sachi, and he told her, he said, now I am Indra, now you can be with me, you can enjoy my company. And he molested Sachi. So she complained to the Brahmanas, and the Brahmanas told, they had a scheme. They said, if you tell Nahusa to ride on a palanquin, then that will we can punish him then. So they arranged that they told Nahusa that you're the king of heaven, you should go on a palanquin. So he thought, yes, very nice, bring a palanquin, I will ride. So he got on the palanquin. But when he was on the palanquin, his feet touched the Brahmanas, touched one of the Brahmanas, because the palanquin was carried by Brahmanas. And this Nahusa's feet touched some of the Brahmins. So then the Brahmanas got very angry and they cursed him. And they cursed him to become a python. So in this way, when Nahusa left the heavenly planets, then at that time, then his son, Yayati, became the king. So King Yayati had 4 younger brothers whom he allowed to rule the 4 directions. Maharaj Parikshit has a question. He said, Sukracharya was a very powerful Brahmana, and Maharaj Yayati was a Kshatriya. He said, therefore, I am curious to know how there occurred this pratiloma marriage between a Kshatriya and a Brahmana. Right? This Yayati had married Sukracharya's daughter. Oh, that was mentioned in the purport there, text number 4. King Yayati had 4 younger brothers whom he allowed to rule the 4 directions. Yayati himself married Devayani, the daughter of Sukracharya, and Sharmista, the daughter of Vrishaparva. Yayati married both of these girls. And at the same time, he ruled the entire earth. So Yayati married the daughter of Sukracharya, named Devayani, and he also married this girl, Sharmista, who was the daughter of Vrishaparva. And in this way, he ruled the earth. So Maharaj Parikshit is surprised that Maharaj Yayati is a Kshatriya and he marries the daughter of a Brahmana. Now, traditionally, the daughter of a Brahmana will only be married to someone from the Brahmana caste. But here, Sukracharya's daughter is married to Yayati. So Maharaj Parikshit wants to know about this. How did this happen? Usually Vedic marriages are between Kshatriyas and Kshatriyas, or between Brahmanas and Brahmanas. And if marriages take place between different classes, then these marriages are of 2 types. There's Anuloma and Pratiloma. Anuloma marriages are between a Brahmana and the daughter of a Kshatriya. So that is allowed. A Brahmana man is allowed to marry the daughter of a Kshatriya. But Pratiloma is a marriage between a Kshatriya and the daughter of a Brahmana. And that generally is not allowed. When you have the girls born in the Brahmana family, they like to have them married to a Brahmana. So Maharaj Parikshit was curious about how Sukracharya, who was a powerful Brahmana, how he could accept that his daughter, Devayani, married a Kshatriya. So that was pratiloma, which is usually not allowed. So Maharaj Parikshit wanted to know about this uncommon marriage. Uncommon, but still it would happen. Just like Romaharshan was also born in that kind of situation. And that's why Lord Balaram considered it was all right to kill him. Because Romaharshan was born in a pratiloma situation. So Sukadeva Goswami is going to tell how it happened that Yayati got married to Devayani. So he says, one day, this is text number 7, one day Vrishaparva's daughter Sharmista, who was innocent but angry by nature, because she's a Kshatriya's daughter, so she has qualities like her father. Usually the son will have qualities like the mother, and the daughter will have qualities like the father. So her father was a Kshatriya king. So Sharmista had similar qualities to her father. A Kshatriya, they're angry by nature. So this Sharmista was angry by nature. And she was walking with Devayani, the daughter of Sukracharya. They had some kind of friendship, Devayani and Sharmista. They were like connected. One's the daughter of Sukracharya and one's the daughter of King Vrishaparva. So they were walking along with thousands of friends in the palace garden. And the garden was full of lotuses and trees of flowers and fruits. and it was inhabited by sweetly singing birds and bumblebees. You can understand it was a palace garden. It'd be very beautiful, nice flowers and trees and fruits. So when the young lotus-eyed girls came to the bank of a reservoir of water, they wanted to enjoy by bathing. So they left their clothing on the bank and began sporting, throwing water on one another. So some places this is a custom, you know, the women, they'll go bathing, they'll have a private place where they can go bathing, where nobody's around. And they were not accustomed to having things like bathing costumes and so on. So they would just take off their clothing and go bathing naked. So they were sporting in the water, and the girls suddenly saw Lord Shiva passing by, seated on the back of his bull Nandi with his wife Parvati. So ashamed because they were naked, the girls quickly got out of the water and covered themselves with their garments. However, Sharmista unknowingly put Devayani's dress on her own body, thus angering Devayani, who then spoke as follows. So Sharmista is angry by nature. We see Devayani is also a little angry by nature. These young women can get angry very easily. Now Devayani got upset because Sharmista had taken put some of her cloth on her own body. So Devayani, being the daughter of Shukracharya, she is thinking, you know, she's the high class. And Sharmista is the daughter of a Kshatriya. So Devayani is thinking her position in society is above Sharmista. So Devayani says to her, just see the activities of this servant maid, Sharmista. Very nasty, you see. She calls her a servant maid. Disregarding all etiquette, she has put on my dress, just like a dog snatching clarified butter meant for use in a sacrifice. Heavy words, you know, to speak like this to the daughter. Sharmista is the daughter of a king. But because Devayani is the daughter of Shukracharya, and Shukracharya is the guru of the king, so Devayani is speaking in this very harsh manner.
Maharaj, your health is not well, Maharaj.
Huh?
Your health is not well today.
Yeah, not so well today, yeah. Oh, Krishna. Okay, so Devayani speaks like this to Sharmista, calls her just like a dog snatching the ghee meant for use in a sacrifice. And then she speaks more. We are among the qualified brahmanas who are accepted as the face of the Supreme Lord. The brahmanas have created the entire universe by their austerity, and they always keep the absolute truth within the core of their hearts. They have directed the path of good fortune, the path of Vedic civilization, And because they are the only worshipable objects within this world, they are offered prayers and worshipped even by the great demigods, the directors of the various planets, and even by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Super Soul, the Supreme Purifier, the husband of the Goddess of Fortune. And we are even more respectable because we are in the dynasty of Bhrigu. Yet although this woman's father, being among the demons, is our disciple, she has put on my dress, exactly like a Sudra taking charge of Vedic knowledge. Wow, my goodness, you can understand something of the pride of this girl, Devayani, how she's so arrogant and speaking in this way. I mean, of course, a lot of the things she says are true, but she's considering brahmanas to be by birth. She's more concerned with birth rather than the actual qualities. Certainly she's described the position of the Supreme Lord, how she said the Supreme Lord worships the brahmanas. Yeah, that's true. We say Namo Brahmana Devaya, Go Brahmana. Lord Krishna worships the brahmanas. He worshipped Sudama Brahman. He worshipped Narada Muni. He would always offer respects to Kunti and Maharaj Yudhisthira. So though Lord Krishna himself is the form of the Absolute Truth, he has respect for the brahmanas. And why? Because the brahmanas are supposed to know Brahman, the knowers of the Brahman. In other words, they know the Absolute Truth. Anyway, she's spoken these harsh words to Sharmista, and we'll see what happens. When thus rebuked in cruel words, Sharmista was very angry, breathing heavily like a serpent and biting her lower lip with her teeth. She spoke to the daughter of Shukracharya as follows. Two young women with a lot of ego, pride, and they not speaking very nicely to each other. So Sharmista is the daughter of the king, Rishabharva. They're from the family of demons. Sukracharya is the guru of the demons. So in the line of the demons. Anyway, she replies to Devayani, she said, "You beggar, since you don't understand your position, why should you unnecessarily talk so much?" She's really replying in strong words. You beggar. And brahmanas, generally, they have to beg for their maintenance, for their sustenance. They don't work. And the brahmanas would come to the Kshatriya kings and beg charity. So Sharmista is pointing this out to Devayani. And she says, "Don't all of you wait at our house, depending on us for your livelihood, like crows?" You see, Devayani said Sharmista was like a dog, and now Sharmista said, "You people are like crows and beggars." So Prabhupada explains the crows have no independent life. They fully depend on the remnants of foodstuff thrown by householders into the garbage tank. Therefore, because a brahmana depends on his disciples, When Sharmishta was heavily rebuked by Devayani, she charged Devayani with belonging to a family of crow-like beggars. So it's the nature of women to fight verbally at even a slight provocation. As we see from this incident, this has been their nature for a long, long time. Yeah. They say you can have 100 beards and mustaches living under one roof without any problem. Meaning 100 men can live together without. But as soon as you have 4 breasts, in other words, as soon as you put 2 women together, they'll fight. There'll be problems. And this is one reason why women should be married. That they need to be taken care of. They need to be protected. Otherwise, they fight with each other like this. Very bad. So, using such unkind words, Sharmishta rebuked Devayani, the daughter of Sukracharya. In anger, she took away Devayani's garments and threw Devayani into a well. Sharmishta is a Kshatriya daughter. She's powerful. She'll be strongly built. And she gets angry. Well, they were both angry. So, she took away Devayani's clothes and threw her into a well. Means she's in the well naked. Krishna. After throwing Devayani into the well, Sharmishta went home. Just left Devayani in the well. Meanwhile, King Yayati, while engaged in a hunting excursion, went to the well to drink water, and by chance he saw Devayani. So you could imagine the situation. This young king, Yayati, he's on a hunting excursion and goes to drink water, and he sees this young naked woman in the well. So King Yayati immediately he gave her his upper cloth. He was very kind to her, and he caught her hand with his own and lifted her out. So this was very nice that Yayati is so kind to her. First of all, giving her cloth to cover her body, and then helping her to get out of the well. So Devayani is overwhelmed with gratitude. So she said to King Yayati, her words, which are full of love and affection, she says to King Yayati, "O great hero, O king, conqueror of the cities of your enemies, by accepting my hand, you have accepted me as your married wife. Let me not be touched by others, for our relationship as husband and wife has been made possible by providence, not by any human being." So it was described, right, that he caught her by her hand, and with his own hand he lifted her out of the well. So when the hand of the woman is placed into the hand of the man, that is like the marriage ceremony. You connect the couples together during the time of the marriage. They'll bind the hands together. So Devayani said to Yayati that you've taken my hand, so you've accepted me as your wife. And she said, this is just by the will of Providence. It's not an arranged marriage, but it's by the will of Providence. Right? There are different kinds of marriages. You get things like Swayamvara marriages, where the girl will pick her husband, and you'll get Gandharva marriages, which are usually arranged marriages. And so some marriages are arranged, some marriages are love marriages, some marriages are the girl picks the husband for herself. Different styles. So while taking Devayani out of the well, King Yayati must have appreciated her youthful beauty, and therefore he might have asked her which caste she belonged to. Because Yayati is a king, so certainly as a king, Kshatriya king, he wants to marry a woman who's also Kshatriya. But at the same time, he was appreciating the beautiful body of the young woman Devayani. So anyway, he inquires from her, what caste are you? And Devayani, she would have replied, we're already married because you have taken my hand. So in other words, Devayani said, doesn't matter what caste I am, we're already married because you've taken my hand. So uniting the hands of the bride and bridegroom is a system perpetually existing in all societies. Therefore, as soon as Yayati accepted Devayani's hand, they could be regarded as married. Because Devayani was enamored with the hero Yayati, she requested him not to change his mind and let another come to marry her. Yeah, it's expected that women should not be naked in front of any man except their husband. And that is why Lord Krishna, when he was a young boy, he stole away the clothes of the gopis. And he had the gopis come and take their clothes back. The gopis were all naked, and they all had to come and take their clothing back from Lord Krishna. But by doing this, Lord Krishna was showing to the gopis that he was accepting all of them as his wives, because the woman should not be naked in front of any man except her husband. So when the gopis all came to get their clothes back, that was Lord Krishna accepting all these girls as his wives, because they all had the desire to have Krishna as a husband. So here also, Devayani, she has seen Yayati, and she could understand he must be a king, because he's hunting, he's there in the forest, and maybe he had some entourage also with him. So she is quite happy to have this man, Yayati, that he, a noble man, strong, good-looking, and she's quite happy to accept him as her husband. And she tells him that don't change your mind. Don't let somebody else come and marry me. So this is Devayani's suggestion to Yayati. Of course, before that can be done, Yayati has to go and see Devayani's father, and he has to get permission from her father that they can be united in marriage. So Devayani says, to Yayati, because of falling in the well, I met you. Indeed, this has been arranged by Providence. After I cursed Kacha, the son of the learned scholar Brihaspati, he cursed me by saying that I would not have a Brahmana for a husband. So, Devayani is telling Yayati how she had been cursed by this young man Kacha, who was the son of Brihaspati. Kacha had come to learn from Sukracharya, because Sukracharya also is a learned scholar. He came to him to learn the art of reviving a man who has died untimely. Sukracharya could do that. You know, it's described how Sukracharya brought Bali Maharaj back to life. After Bali Maharaj had been killed in a battle, Sukracharya brought him back to life. So Sukracharya had this kind of power, and Kacha, who was the son of Brihaspati, he wanted to learn this from Sukracharya. But what happened was when Kacha came there, then Devayani saw the young man and she became attracted to him. And she wanted to marry Kacha. But Kacha refused her. Kacha refused the girl. He thought that, how can I accept Sukracharya's daughter for a wife? Because Sukracharya is my guru, so he's my superior. So I can't marry his daughter. I'm not qualified to make my position in society is not worthy of accepting the daughter of Sukracharya for a wife. So at that time, Devayani cursed Kacha. Because he wouldn't accept her as a wife, so she cursed him that whatever he had learned from her father, it would be useless. So when she cursed Kacha like that, then Kacha cursed her, cursing and counter-cursing. You see, not very forgiving. The nature is not very forgiving. So Kacha cursed Devayani, saying, "You will not have a Brahmana for a husband." And so this way, Devayani is telling Yayati, she said, this is all, our meeting together, this has been arranged by Providence. And Devayani said, there's no possibility of my becoming the wife of a Brahmana, because that curse is there from Kacha. I've been cursed that I wouldn't have a Brahmana for a husband. So, you're the Kshatriya. Providence has arranged and put us together. Now you should accept me as your wife. So all of this is described in the purport there. You can see. So this art of reviving a dead man, this is called Mrita Sanjivani. And Prabhupada explains when there would be wars, then of course soldiers would sometimes die, although they were still quite young. But if the soldier's body was intact, then they could bring him back to life again by this art of Mrita Sanjivani. And Sukracharya knew this, and Kacha, son of Brihaspati, had become Sukracharya's student. to learn it. So it appears there's some cooperation there between the demigods and the demons. That Kacha is coming from Brihaspati. Brihaspati is the guru of the demigods. So he's come to learn the art from Shukracharya, who's the guru of the demons. So it appears there's some good relationships there, that although he's from the side of the demigods, the demons are willing to teach him something. So Devayani, when she saw Kacha, she thought he would make a nice husband for her. But Kacha, because he respects Sukracharya like a guru, so he thought, I'm not worthy of accepting the guru's daughter, that they are superior to me. So he said, I cannot marry you, I'm not worthy. So Devayani then cursed him, that whatever you've learned will be useless. And Kacha retaliates, although he's not very forgiving either, and he curses Devayani. You will never have a husband who was a Brahmana. So Devayani, she's attracted to Yayati, who is a Kshatriya, and she wants him to take her as his wife. So this will be Pratiloma Vivaha. That means a marriage between the daughter of a high family and the son of a low family. She explained that this arrangement was made by providence. Nowadays, people don't worry so much about these things. But in the past, it was very important.
Maharaj's question is striking my mind for the understanding that because our qualities are not determined because of our birth, so every individual is distinguished by its distinct qualities. Janma karma chama divyam evam bhakti tatotah. So therefore, if a man marries a woman, irrespective of any caste or creed, it has no scientific background in its proper understanding. Why the marriage is pratilom, unfavorable, and the marriage is favorable in case higher caste man marries lower caste woman, but the reverse is not favorable. Does it have a scientific background, or we are governed by, because we have accepted Krishna consciousness, we are governed by the Shastric injunctions, but insofar as scientific understanding is concerned, does it have any relevance, Maharaj, according to your experiences? Yes, of course, I have seen that there are many families have been devastated because of such combinations. I had seen one of my relations is a Kshatriya, he married Brahman girl, so the family was destroyed and he left the family members, there's just a chaotic situation. Dissents and diversities arose in his family. And also I had seen one of my friends, he's a Kshatriya, he married a Brahman girl, he was district collector, his daughter, and he also died. Just recently, 2 years ago, he died, left this world, and his wife is still surviving, who is the daughter of Brahman. Her father's name was Tripathi. So this is happening in practical life, but insofar as scientific understanding is concerned, it is striking my mind. What would be the better answer from him?
Yes, difficult to understand, isn't it? How this happens. I'm not completely familiar with it, but generally, the man, the Brahmana girls, because they're born in a Brahmana family, so the girl will have the qualities of the father. So she'll be somewhat Brahminical. So they would like to have the Brahmana girls married to a Brahmana man. But when you have a girl who's from not Brahmana family, then the quality will be different, right? Like Sharmista, her father is a Kshatriya. So she's like a Kshatriya in spirit, angry. She could knock Devyani into the well, leave her there in the well, you know. You could say hard-hearted and cold, no real feeling about it. But Brahmanas, a Brahmana nature should be more forgiving and compassionate and caring. Of course, we don't really see that with Devayani, that she could speak so harshly to Sharmista. But that's the understanding, that the girl coming from the Brahmana family, she should be married into a Brahmana family. And the Brahmana man needs to have a girl like that from a Brahmana background. Then it's easier for them to get along. If they're of a similar nature, similar culture, but you cross them. So Anuloma is the man is a Kshatriya, right? And the girl is...
Man is not as Brahmin.
Huh?
Man is Brahmin.
Oh, the girl is not... The man is a Brahmin.
Girl is Kshatriya, so it is Anulom.
Yeah. Man is a Brahmin, girl is Kshatriya.
Yes.
That's allowed.
That's allowed, favorable marriage. Anuloma.
Yeah, because there's not enough Brahmana girls for all the Brahmana men. Because people like to have male children. So there's more male children, so it's difficult to get wives for the other men. So therefore they have to marry the Kshatriya girl. It's allowed. But if it's the other way around, then it's going to create problems.
But Maharaj, this rule does not apply if the couple, they are Vaishnavas.
Yes. Well, in Vaishnava society, Vaishnava culture, Vaishnava means, you're supposed to have good qualities. Vaishnava is supposed to be the best, topmost Brahmin. Those who are actually Vaishnava, they are considered to be Brahmins. But Prabhupada also said to be a Vaishnava is not a very easy thing. So, anyway, Vaishnava qualities, if the Vaishnava qualities are there, then they can marry anyone. Man and women, if they're both Vaishnavas, then they should be able to get along without any problem. If they're both Krishna conscious, that's the important thing. They both have to be, they should be equally advanced. You see, sometimes you get devotees, some devotees are more serious than others. Some devotees are more regulated and more accustomed to chanting and reading scriptures than others. Some people, they're not so strict. Congregation devotees, they may get up late in the morning, like that. They may not be so careful about their habits. Sometimes they will eat things which are not really so good. So you get different levels of society, even in the Vaishnava community. People practice, how they practice has to be understood. So therefore, generally before the marriage takes place, they'll consult astrology and see how are the charts matching. And they want to also understand the nature of the family which he's coming from. The man is coming from what kind of family? Are they meat eaters? Are they clean? Are they pious, religious people, or what? So it's not enough just to say, no, they're devotees. Yeah, they're devotees, but we don't know how well they practice. So you do have to be a little cautious about things. And sometimes astrology can help. It can be some indication. Of course, astrology is not 100%, but it can be some kind of indication. And similarly, the birth is also, if their gotra is matching and they're compatible, then it can be easier. A lot depends on maturity. They have the couple being married have to be mature, and they have to be and willing to cooperate with each other for Krishna consciousness. Okay, we'll go ahead. Here's text 23. Sukadeva Goswami said, because such a marriage is not sanctioned by regular scriptures, King Yayati did not like it. But because it was arranged by Providence, and because he was attracted by Devayani's beauty, he accepted her request. So you see, Maharaji Yayati doesn't like it because it's not according to scripture exactly. But because of the bodily concept, he is attracted. So Prabhupada explains the Vedic system, parents would consult the horoscope of the boy and the girl. According to astrological calculation, if they're compatible, then the match was arranged. It was called Yotaka, and the marriage would be accepted. So it's still, even among our devotees, they often do like that. They will consult the astrologers just to make sure. And different astrologers have different opinions as well. You can pick and choose. And Prabhupada said, regardless of the affluence of the boy or the personal beauty of the girl, without this astrological compatibility, the marriage would not take place. Now, these are two big issues. The affluence of the boy. Girls are, especially the girl's family, they're very concerned about the affluence of the boy. Has he got enough money to maintain my daughter? He wants to marry my daughter. Has he got enough income that he can maintain my daughter? Because marriage means in the future there will be some children. Then you have to have some income in order to maintain the family. So the boy's affluence is a practical point. It's important. And of course, another important thing is the personal beauty of the girl. If the girl is more attractive, then the boy will be more inclined to the marriage. He will, but of course that's not going to last very long. The beauty of the girl, quickly the women will age, and when they have children and so on. So the personal beauty is a temporary thing. But still, these things are important in terms of marriage. So Prabhupada explains there are three categories. You have Deva Gana, Manushya Gana, and Rakshasa Gana. In different parts of the universe, there are demigods and demons. And in human society also, some people resemble demigods, whereas others resemble demons. If, according to astrological calculation, if there was a conflict between a godly and a demoniac nature, then the marriage would not take place. Similarly, there were calculations of Pratiloma and Anuloma. The central idea is that if the boy and girl were on an equal level, the marriage would be happy. Right? They should be equally matched. They should be on an equal level. Another thing is education. Sometimes, if the girl is highly educated and the boy doesn't have much education, then it's difficult. And it's going to be more difficult. And young women especially, they like to have a man who is equally educated as they are. But sometimes it's difficult to find. And when they're not equal, then when they argue, when they have some disagreements, then they'll tell each other, there'll be quarrels like that, and they'll insult each other. Just like Devayani and Sharmista insulted each other on the basis of their birth. Sharmista said to Devayani, "You people are like beggar dogs. Oh no, beggar crows." And Devayani said to Sharmista, "You people are like the dog, right? Stole away the ghee from the sacrifice." So Prabhupada said, because care is no longer taken in marriage, we find many divorce. Divorce has become a common affair. But formerly, marriage would continue lifelong. And the affection between husband and wife was so great that the wife would voluntarily die when her husband died, or would remain a faithful widow throughout her entire life. Now, of course, this is no longer possible. Human society has fallen to the level of animal society. Marriage now takes place simply by agreement. Dampatye biruchir hetu. The word abhiruchi means agreement. If the boy and girl simply agree to marry, the marriage takes place. But when the Vedic system is not rigidly observed, marriage frequently ends in divorce. So Vedic system means they have to assess the compatibility of the couple. Their natures should be similar. And they have to be able to cooperate together. And Prabhupada would sometimes write to couples when they were asking blessings for marriage. Prabhupada would say, now you should be lifetime companions. And Prabhupada never liked divorce. And he would tell couples, he said, now you are lifetime companions. You should live together for life. And if the Prabhupada talks how sometimes when the husband would die, the wife would follow the husband. She would enter into the fire. She would perform sati and give up her life just to follow her husband. Or else she would at least become a widow, and she would put on the dress of a widow. Widows, they dress in white, and they don't tie their hair up. Their hair would just hang down, because they're no longer, they're widows. It's a sign that a woman is a widow. So when there's divorce, you have like often the girl may have a child even by the marriage, but still they divorce. And even I've seen couples, even the wife has 3 children and then they divorce. It's so unusual that somehow they're able to come together and have 3 children and still they cannot get along and they end up divorcing. So this is Kali Yuga. You see, the marriage is simply based on agreement. So it's proper to check things, to see who is compatible with who, to be careful. Okay. Text 24. Thereafter, when the learned king returned to his palace, Devayani returned home, crying, and told her father, Sukracharya, about all that had happened because of Sharmista. She told how she had been thrown into the well, but was saved by the king. So, this is it. Devayani's not married yet. She goes to her father and tells her father what has happened. Of course, her father, Sukracharya, is the guru. So he's the guru of this Sharmista and Sharmista's father. So Sukracharya listened to what had happened and his mind was very much aggrieved, condemning the profession of priesthood and praising the profession of Unchavritti, which means collecting grains from the field. He left home with his daughter. So Sukracharya has to do something, he has to take some action to satisfy his daughter. Devayani has come and she's got some good complaint, but Sukracharya doesn't like having to go there and complain to the king. But anyway, he has to do it. He said it would be better if he could just simply be a brahmana who lives by unchavritti, instead of having disciples and having to take care of issues between daughters and disciples. He has to take care. He said if he could just live by collecting grains in the field, it would be easier. Collecting grains in the field, you depend on the mercy of the Lord. You don't have to beg from anyone. But Sukracharya has to beg. The profession, Prabhupada said, profession of begging is allowed for a brahmana or sannyasi. One does better if he can avoid such a profession and completely depend on the mercy of the personality of Godhead for maintenance. So we see brahmanas like Sudama Brahmana. He didn't go and beg. He wouldn't go and beg. He didn't want to depend on the mercy. He just wanted to depend on the mercy of the Supreme Lord. He didn't want to depend on others for his maintenance. So he just wouldn't go and beg. Although he was a brahmana, he could have, but he wouldn't. He didn't like to just go and beg from people. He would just depend on Krishna. And there were sannyasis like Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri had come there in Govardhan, and he was sitting there in Govardhan, and he wouldn't beg. He wouldn't ask anyone for food. If people gave him food, he would accept it. But he would never ask people for food. So Krishna would come personally and bring him milk, bring him food. Sanatan Goswami also was living in Vrindavan, and the Lord would, sometimes Radharani would come and bring food to give him so that he could cook for his deity. So some devotees, great devotees, they would just simply depend on the Supreme Lord for maintenance. So Sukracharya was very sorry that because of his daughter's complaint, he had to go to his disciple to beg mercy. He was obliged to do this because he had accepted the profession of priesthood. Sukracharya did not like his profession, but since he had accepted it, he was obliged to go unwillingly to his disciple to settle the grievance submitted by his daughter. So, very difficult. Being a father, bringing up children, children get involved in these kinds of things. You have to settle the issues with the other people. Sometimes children will fight with each other. Parents have to go and talk to the other children or the other children's parents. So, Sukracharya has to go with Devayani to see King Vrishaparva. Well, Vrishaparva understood that Sukracharya was going to come there and he would chastise or curse him. Somehow he knew, I don't know how. I don't think his daughter would say anything. But before Sukracharya could come to the house, Vrishaparva came out and fell down in the street at the feet of his guru and satisfied him, checking his wrath. So Vrishaparva is really a humble disciple of Sukracharya, and he comes out of his house and he falls at the feet of Sukracharya, and he's eager to try to settle this conflict which has taken place. So Sukracharya is described as powerful. The powerful Sukracharya was angry for a few moments, but upon being satisfied, he said to Vrishaparva, he says, "My dear king, kindly fulfill the desire of Devayani, for she is my daughter. In this world I cannot give her up or neglect her." So, Sukracharya is describing his position, that Devayani is my daughter. I cannot give up my daughter. I cannot neglect her. You have to fulfill my desire. So Sukracharya cannot neglect his children. The children are dependent on their father. Father has affection for the children. And Sukracharya knows the quarrel between the two gurus was childish. But Sukracharya has to take the side of his daughter. He didn't like to do that, but he had to do it because of his affection for his daughter. And he honestly admitted that he should not have asked the king for mercy. Because of affection, however, he could not avoid doing so. So family attachment, certainly husband will have a lot of attachment to his wife. And when they have children, then you have even more attachment for the children. So here you see Sukracharya, he has to come and plead to the king that you have to do something, that my daughter is so angry, that she's so disturbed, that your daughter behaved like that, knocking her into the well, leaving her naked. So Sukracharya wants that Vrishaparva do something to settle this dispute between the two gurus. So, Vrishaparva, he heard Sukracharya's request and he has to agree. So they asked Devayani, what does she want? So Devayani tells Vrishaparva and Sukracharya, she tells the two parents her desire. She said, "Whenever I marry, by the order of my father, my friend Sharmista must go with me as my maidservant, along with her friends." So that was her desire. Now Sharmista is the daughter of a king, but Devayani wants to make Sharmista like her servant. She should come with me as my maidservant, along with her friends. So you could see quite a heavy desire, Devayani, that whoever I marry, Sharmista has to become my maidservant. So Vrishaparva, he thought about it. He thought about Sukracharya's displeasure, that if we make Sukracharya angry, it would be very dangerous. But if we can please Sukracharya, that would be very good, that will be materially beneficial. So he agreed to carry out Devayani's desire, the order of Sukracharya. And the king is just like a slave to his guru. So he gave his daughter to Devayani. And Sharmista became Devayani's servant, just like a slave. Not only her, but along with thousands of other women. So Vishwaparva was very surrendered to his guru, that he agreed to give his daughter away like that. And the daughter has to go. This is the interest. The daughter, although she's the daughter of a king, she cannot say, "No, I'm not going to," she has to go. This is the arrangement. So Sharmista had many friends. And now all these friends, they all became maidservants of Devayani. Just like, well, it's described here in the purport, when a Kshatriya king is married, then all of the queen's girlfriends will go with her to her husband's house. And we see that in the 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, when Vasudeva married Devaki. At that time, so many of Devaki's friends all went with her. Actually, Vasudeva married all 6 of Devaki's sisters. And she had many friends who all came with her when she got married. So the king, his job is not only to maintain his wife, but also the many friends and maidservants of his wife. You know, if you're a king, you have to be able to do these kind of things. Maintain so many people, so many friends and servants. You have to maintain everyone. And of course, because you have so many women there, sometimes some of them will become pregnant and give birth to children. You have all these very young women there, and certainly there'll be a lot of illicit connection going on. So you've got these things like, just like Vidura was born in the womb of a maidservant. So these kind of situations were common in those days. And these children, they're called Dasi Putra, the son of the maidservants. Or it could be Dasi Kanya, right? Not everybody would give birth to a son. Anyway, they would be born in the palace and the king will maintain them all. Because the female population is usually greater than the male. But since a woman needs to be protected by a man, the king would marry many girls. The king, of course, Lord Ramachandra, he was an exception. He took the vow, ekapatnivra, just one wife, but generally the kings would marry many women. We have Maharaj Dasarath had many wives, and Lord Krishna, of course, had many wives. Uttanapada also. So the king would maintain many girls who acted either as friends or as maidservants of the queen. They would all be friends and maidservants of the queen. They'd have the queen would be the main figure. And you have prominent queens. Some of Maharaj Datharas had 3 prominent queens, but there were many other women in the background also. Lord Krishna had 8 prominent queens. So Prabhupada said Lord Krishna married 16,108 wives. These were not maidservants but direct queens. And Krishna expanded himself into 16,108 forms to maintain different establishments for each and every wife. This is not possible for ordinary men. Although the kings had to maintain many servants and wives, not all of them had different establishments. So even today sometimes you find people, they have a number of wives. We had one man, I was in Malaysia, we had one man there, he had 8 wives, and they all lived together. They got along nicely with each other. But not always possible. So Shukracharya he agreed to give Devayani in marriage. And he agrees that Devayani can get married to Yayati. So then Sharmista had to go with her. But at that time, he told the king, he said, "My dear king, never allow this girl Sharmista to lie with you in your bed." So Shukracharya could understand the tendency which would be there. That, well, Devayani made the mistake by bringing Sharmista with her, that she wants Sharmista to come as a servant. But Sharmista is a young woman and she's also very attractive. And Shukracharya could understand that, in palace life, sometimes the king will be with Devayani and sometimes he'll be with other women there. And so he told Yayati, "I don't want you to get involved with this girl Sharmista." Of course, Sharmista, she's the daughter of the king, so in some ways she would be the better wife for Yayati, because Yayati is a Kshatriya. But he's marrying Devayani, who's the daughter of a Brahmana. And so in some ways it would be better if he would marry Sharmista, but the Providence has arranged that he marries Devayani and Sharmista is coming as a servant there. So they get married, Yayati and Devayani gives birth to a son. And when Devayani has a son, then Sharmista, who is the servant there, she sees that Devayani has a nice son, and she thinks she would also like to have a child. So she approaches King Yayati at the appropriate time for conception. So in a secluded place, she requested the king, husband of her friend Devayani, to give her a son also. So Sharmista also becomes pregnant. Now, you can note that Sharmista approached the king at the appropriate time for conception. In other words, it was not against religious principles. Although the couple were not married, but still her intention was to give birth to a child. So she approaches the king and she conceives. And when she conceives, then, text 32, Sharmista had begged Yayati for a son, and the king was certainly aware of the principles of religion. The principles of religion. A Kshatriya, when he's approached by a woman, he has to fulfill her desires. It's a religious principle. When the Kshatriya king is approached by a woman, he has to satisfy her. So they had that custom, that principle was there in the previous ages. So he agreed to fulfill her desire. Although he remembered the warning of Sukracharya, he thought of this union as the desire of the Supreme. And thus he had sex with Sharmista. So Sukracharya had warned Yayati not to get involved with Sharmista, but Yayati thought, well, it's the arrangement of the Supreme Lord. Just like their marriage, it was the desire of providence. So in the same way, he thought, my union with Sharmista, it's arranged by providence. Prabhupada explains in the purport, when a Kshatriya is approached by a woman, he cannot deny her. This is a religious principle. So when Dharmaraj, when he saw Arjuna was unhappy, after Arjuna came back from Dwarka, Maharaj Yudhisthira asked him, had he refused a woman who had begged for a son? He thought maybe that was why Arjuna was so sad looking. So here Maharaj Yati remembered Sukracharya's warning, but he could not refuse Sharmista. So he gave her a son. Huh?
Maharaj, is it not illicit sexual indulgence?
Is it not illicit sexual indulgence? Well, you have to understand the Vedic culture. That Yayati is a Kshatriya king, and he's living in the palace with all these women. And so the Vedic culture is that any woman goes to a Kshatriya man, and if they want to have a child, he shouldn't refuse them. And you can see, like Arjuna had 4 wives, and Bhima also had wives, and like that. And that's not considered irreligious. It's not illicit, because the girl approached with the intention of having a child. They didn't just approach for sense gratification, but their intention was to have a child. And Prabhupada writes, he said he thought it wise to give her a son, and thus he had sex with her after her menstrual period. After her menstrual period means her womb is fertile. It's a good time for her to conceive a child. So this kind of lust is not against religious principles. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Dhamma varudo bhuteshu kamosmi bharata sabha. Sex life not contrary to the principle of religion is sanctioned by Krishna. So because Sharmista, the daughter of a king, had begged Yayati for a son, their combination was not lust, but an act of religion. Right? We cannot imitate that. You know, we don't have Kshatriya kings. And we don't have palaces with women living in them also. You know. So Sharmista will give birth to children and the king will take care of them.
Whereas any woman would approach a king to beget a son. So in this process, because indirectly it is a marriage, indirectly it is the relationship between two individuals, persons, man and woman.
Yes, so, like a marriage, yeah. It's not against religious principles, right? Just like they brought these ladies to, Bhishma had brought those two sisters to the palace.
Ambika Ambalika.
Yeah. To have children. Of course that was, Vyasadeva was called because he was the brother. Vishwatravira died. And there were no issue. So his two wives were there without any child. So then they called the brother, Vyasadeva. So Vyasadeva conceived first of all Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was the eldest. And then Pandu, but still they were not satisfied. One is blind and the other is very pale. They thought, not very good, you should give another son. But neither of the two girls was willing to go into the room with Vyasadeva again. And they thought, no way, I'm not going to go through that again. So they got the maidservant, and the maidservant gave birth to Vidura. Okay, so Yayati conceives a son in the womb of Sharmista. And here you have Devayani gave birth to Yadu and Turvasu. And Sharmista gave birth to Druya, Anu and Puru. So Devayani had 2 sons. Sharmista has 3 sons. Although she's a maidservant there, she has 3 sons by Yayati. So when Devayani understood that Sharmista was pregnant, people had told her that Sharmista's pregnant, and the father is her husband, then she was frenzied with anger. She's very angry again. And she goes to her father's house to complain. Yes?
Sorry, I wanted to ask a couple of questions before we go into the next section. I suppose we're entering into another section.
Okay.
Maj, the first thing was that Yayati not just gives her 1 son, but it seems like that there was a regular affair. Therefore, they had 3 sons. So how is it still religious? If already now Sharmista has already got 1 son, say Dhruya, if it was the first son. So then there's Anu and then there's Puru. So is it still religious?
Yes, because first of all, she would approach the husband so that at the proper time that she could conceive a child. She wouldn't just approach the husband for sense gratification. Her intention was to have the child. And because, she's a maidservant in the palace, the husband is going to take care of the children. They'll all be brought up in the palace. They're his sons, they're his children. He's going to take care, look after them. They're not going to be neglected. So, because he was a Kshatriya king, and he's approached by the woman, it's his duty to satisfy her. Actually, in married life, when the wife, any woman, will approach her husband for a child, it's the duty of the husband to satisfy his wife. So here, in Vedic culture, not only wife, if they're approached by any man, a Kshatriya king is approached by any woman, he should satisfy her and give her a child. Because the woman, her intention is that she wants the child. So the Kshatriya king was expected to do that. And that's not against religious principles. In fact, it is religion to give the woman the child. But the woman should be ready to conceive the child. It should be the right time in her menstrual cycle, that after her menstruation, at that time her woman's fertile and she can conceive of a child.
And Maja, how is it that the Sarmishta desired sons, and then all of them happen to be sons? How does one choose, or make arrangements in such a way that it will definitely be a son rather than a daughter?
I don't know. We're not told about that. I don't know this, the secrets to these things. I don't think too many people do know. I've never really heard. I think somewhere Prabhupada said if the woman is more attracted to the husband than the husband is attracted to the woman, then you get a son. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But not very clear, something not often spoken about. You depend on the will of the Supreme Lord. We're told they had sons, I don't know. Did they have any daughters? I don't know. Maybe they also had daughters. Maybe just didn't mention the daughters.
And Maharaj, what about all these thousands of friends of Sarmishta? Who were they? Where did they come from? And whose daughters were they?
Well, Sharmishta was a king, a daughter of a king. She's living in the palace, and the king would naturally have many people there. There'd be many people there working around the palace and engaged in affairs. The king has a kingdom, and in the kingdom there are many people, and naturally she has her friends, and so these friends, they also go with her when she goes there.
So then the king can tell one of his, just say for example, minister's daughter, or tell the minister, your daughter will be would be the servant of my daughter, and then my daughter will also be a servant of another, some king's wife, somewhere else. King has that right to tell the father or someone else's daughter that she'll be now a maidservant of someone else.
Well, yes, it appears that this is the dealing, that because Sharmishta, the king's daughter, had behaved in such a nasty way, knocking the Devayani into the well naked and leaving her there, that she has to be given some punishment. And Devayani has to be satisfied. Devayani is very upset, that she's been treated in this way. And she wants to get her revenge. And so the guru comes, Shukracharya comes to the king, and the king has to satisfy the guru. And what do they have to? They have to satisfy Devayani. And what Devayani wants was Sharmishta should become her maidservant. So Sharmishta had to go there. She had to go there as a maidservant. But of course, it happens, that Yayati is there, and Sharmishta understands she can also have a relationship with the Yayati. So she must have had her motivation in going there. And thought, okay, I'll go there. And anyway, she's got this nice husband, I can also have an affair with him. He can also give me children. just like Devayani gets a child, so I also want a child. So, not very difficult. These things.
Just a final kind of query. So the request of Devyani is completely unreasonable. Like someone to become your servant for the rest of your life in your marriage. And even a child could understand that this is unfair, this is unreasonable compared to what Sharmishta did, right? It's almost like life imprisonment. So then how come Sukracharya, who's meant to be like the priest, great priest, how comes also other kings and other personalities is like, this is your daughter's request is completely unreasonable. Okay, even if there's meant to be some punishment, let's be reasonable. So how comes none of these things is being discussed or raised?
Well, you understand, it's not really so bad that she's going to the palace, she's going with Devayani. Devayani's going to marry Yayati. Yayati's a king, he has a palace, she'll go and live in the palace. You know, she'll be living quite a nice standard of life. You know, she's a daughter of a king anyway, so she's used to living in a palace. And now she's going to go to Yayati's palace and live there. And, okay, she's a maidservant, but she won't be like all the maidservants. Among the maidservants, there will be a hierarchy, and she'll have certainly a superior position. And she's going to have children as well. So it's not actually as bad as what you make it out.
Thank you much.
All right, so Devayani is very angry. She heard that her husband had fathered a child in the womb of Sharmishta. And so she goes to her father's house. So King Yayati, who was very lusty, followed his wife. So Devayani is going to her father, and Yayati's chasing after his wife, trying to pacify her. Oh no, it's... But Devayani is determined. She's going to go to her father and tell her father what happened. And Yayati is following her, catches her, tries to speak words pleasing, massages her feet, but he could not satisfy her by any means. Devayani is very angry, and she's determined to go to her father and have her father do something. So Sukracharya was also angry, and he condemns Yayati. You untruthful fool, lusting after women, you have done a great wrong. I therefore curse you to be attacked and disfigured by old age and invalidity. Wow, heavy punishment for Yayati, you see. I mean, there were so many other women there in the palace. If he just wanted to have sex, he could have enjoyed with any other. There were so many other women, but somehow he got involved with Sharmishta. And Sharmishta is, of course, something of the enemy of Devayani. So getting Sharmishta pregnant was intolerable for Devayani. And she goes to her father. And her father had also warned, Yayati had also warned, don't lay on the same bed with the Sharmishta. Anyway, easier said than done. You know, to have women around, they tempt fire and butter. Women are like fire and the men are like butter. So Yayati was very lusty, and he got influenced. However, when Sukracharya puts that curse, Yayati has his reply, and he says, "O learned, worshipable Brahmana, I have not yet satisfied my lusty desires with your daughter." He was a young man, and they had some children, 1 or 2 children, but anyway, he still wanted to enjoy with his wife. So then he said, "I still have lusty desires. If you make me old, I won't be able to satisfy your daughter." So Sukracharya said, "You may exchange your old age with someone who will agree to transfer his youth to you." So when King Yayati said he had not yet satisfied his lusty desires with Devayani, Sukracharya could understand that it was against the interests of Devayani for Yayati to be old and invalid. Because for sure his lusty daughter would not be satisfied. And nobody wants to marry an old man. My goodness. You know, that's a real curse, isn't it? To marry somebody who's old and invalid. You have to take care of them. That's a real curse. So nobody, Sukracharya understood to put his daughter into that situation would be very bad, that his daughter would be completely dissatisfied. So Sukracharya blessed his son-in-law by saying he could exchange that old age if someone will give his youth. So he's saying that if Yayati's son would take his youth for his old age, then Yayati could continue to have sex with Devayani. In old age, he cannot. But young men, they can do that. Young men, like Yayati's a young man, so he can still satisfy the desires of Devayani. So when Yayati got this benediction from Sukracharya, then he asks his eldest son. The eldest son was Yadu. And he says to Yadu, "Please give me your youth in exchange for my old age and invalidity." So Yadu is quite interesting what he has to say about this. He said, "My dear son, first of all, Yayati is speaking to Yadu, and he's telling his son the situation. He said, "My dear son, I'm not yet satisfied in my sexual desires. But if you are kind to me, you can take the old age given to me by your maternal grandfather, and I may take your youth so that I may enjoy life for a few more years." So, Prabhupada said this is the nature of lusty desires, that it never ends. The nature of lust, it burns like fire and is never satisfied. When we're too much attached to sense gratification, then we lose all of our good sense, all of our good intelligence. It's all destroyed just by lusty desires. Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita 7:20, "Kamaiste rita jnana prapajanti naya devata," right? That people they've lost their intelligence. So here's an example. The father shamelessly asks his son to give his youth for his old age. And practically the whole world is in this kind of condition. Everyone is mad, pramata, mad, nunam pramata kurute vikarma. Yet indriya pritai aprinoti. They're all mad for sense gratification. We want to enjoy, we want sense gratification, and we become mad to get it. Nasadu manye yata atmano yam masanapi kleshada asadeha. Srimad Bhagavatam said, that is not good, my friend. On account of all that, the sinful activities, vikarma means sinful activities. Because of all your sinful activity, you're going to take another birth. And that will be so much trouble. Nasanapi kleshada asadi. You're just going to get more trouble. So sex, sense gratification, bring so many problems. But they have to be used, they have to be controlled. And Prabhupada said one achieves perfection when he has no desire for sex. This is possible only when one is fully Krishna conscious. And then Prabhupada quotes Yamunacharya. Prabhupada quotes Yamunacharya, the famous verse, Yamunacharya. Yamunacharya, he had been a king, and he had lived in the palace, and he'd enjoyed a lot of sense gratification. But then later in life, he renounced everything, and he went to live in the temple, and he became a fully absorbed devotee. So Yamunacharya composed this verse, Yadavadi mama cheta Krishna padara vinde, nava nava rasa daman yujyata rantam asit, tadavadi bhatanari sangame smarayamane, bhavati mukha vikarasastu nishtivanamcha. Right? Yamunacharya says, whenever I think about my past and I think about the sex pleasure, then my lips curl with distaste and I spit at the thought. Because now Yamunacharya was engaged in loving service to Krishna, and he was getting so much more pleasure from that, from engaging in the service of Krishna. And that pleasure which he thought was there in sex, that he thought to be nothing, insignificant, terrible, miserable, distasteful. So when we are Krishna conscious, then we can stop this desire for sense gratification, sex life. As long as we desire sex, you have to take another body and stay in the material world. In the form, you may have a different body, but the business is the same. So that is what Prahlad Maharaj describes as chewing the chewed. Punapunas charvita charvananam. People too much attached to sex. They move from one body to another. Dog life. Tasting sex as a dog, or a hog, or as a demigod. The business is the same. Sense gratification. So Yayati was asking his son to take his old age. But Yadu replies, my dear father, you have already achieved old age, although you were a young man. Although you also were a young man, but now you've achieved old age. I do not welcome your old age and invalidity, because unless one enjoys material happiness, one cannot attain renunciation. So this is Yadu's reason why he doesn't want to help his father. His father, Yadu is saying that I want to renounce. If I don't enjoy material happiness first, I won't be able to renounce. Renunciation is the ultimate goal of human life, Prabhupada writes. To give up material enjoyment. That's one of the aims of human life. So Varnashram system is arranged like that. That you enjoy life in the Grihastha life and then you renounce in Vanaprastha life. You detach yourself from all that. This is the way of Varnashram. In our old age, from the age of 50, you're meant to go to the forest. So the Varnashram system is scientific. It's to help us to go back home, back to Godhead. And we cannot do that until we give up all the connections with the material world. Prabhupada quotes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Niskinchanasya Bhagavat Bhajanan Makasya. One who wants to go back home, back to Godhead, must be Niskinchana. He has to be free from all attachment to material enjoyment. And then Brahmani Upasamshrayam. Unless one is fully renounced, we cannot engage in devotional service or stay in the Brahman. Devotional service is on the Brahmabhuta platform. And unless we come to that Brahmabhuta platform, right? Brahmabhuta prasanatma na sochati na kanchati sama sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. Unless we come to the platform of Brahmabhuta, the spiritual platform, we cannot take up devotional service. The one who is doing devotional service is understood that he's on the Brahman platform. The one who engages in devotional service, he does not fall down. At once he transcends the modes of nature. Bhagavad Gita. So devotional service, one who is doing devotional service, he should be on the liberated platform. And in order to come to that liberated platform, usually it's necessary that one enjoys material happiness, and then they can renounce. So Varnashram is for gradual elevation. So this Yadu, the son of Maharaj Yayati, said he was not able to give up his youth because he wanted to use it that later on he would renounce. So this Yadu was different from his brothers. Yadu's brothers, they just refused to accept their father's old age because they were completely, they were not aware of Dharma. To accept orders that follow religious principles, especially the order of one's father, is very important. Yeah, we were hearing previous days about the importance of accepting authority. Vishwamitra, Parasurama, accepting authority, accept the father, the order of the father. There's a religious principle. Therefore, when the brothers of Yayati refused their father's order, this was irreligious. They refused the order just simply on the basis of their own sense gratification. They didn't understand the religious principles. But Yadu's refusal, that was religious. Yadu was completely aware of the principles of religion. And the ultimate principle of religion is to surrender to Krishna in devotional service. So Yadu was eager to engage himself in Krishna's service. But there was an impediment. During youth, the material desires are very strong. And unless we satisfy lusty desires in youth, then there's a chance of being disturbed in performing service. And Prabhupada writes about this in the purport. We have seen many sannyasis who accept sannyas prematurely, not having satisfied their material desires, and they fall down because they are disturbed. Therefore, the general process is to go through grihastha life and vanaprastha life and finally come to sannyas and devote oneself completely. You can see in ISKCON, they have the rule, people taking sannyas, they should be at least 40 years of age. They don't like to give sannyas to young men. It's very difficult for young men to keep up the vows. So Maharaj Yadu was ready to accept his father's order and exchange youth for old age because he was confident that the youth taken by his father would be returned. But there was a problem. He said this exchange will delay his complete engagement in devotional service. He did not want to accept his father's old age because he was eager to get freedom from disturbances. He didn't want to be delayed so long. And another reason is mentioned, among the descendants of Yadu would be Lord Krishna, right? Lord Krishna appears in the Yadu dynasty. Therefore, because Yadu was eager to see the Lord's appearance in his dynasty as soon as possible, Yadu refused his father's proposal. So this was not irreligious. So Yadu's purpose was that the Lord should be able to come. But if Yadu has to take father's old age, then the whole thing will be delayed. Yadu he's a servant of Lord Krishna, and he knew Lord Krishna is going to appear in his dynasty. And that's in Queen Kunti's prayers. Yado priyas yan va vaye. Yadu was very dear to Krishna, and he was eager to descend. Lord Krishna is eager to descend in the Yadu dynasty. So Maharaj Yadu, when he refused, it was not because of ignorance of religious principle.
What was exactly his argument? Yadu's argument refusing to exchange.
Huh?
What was Yadu's argument with his father Yayati in refusing to exchange youth? He said that after renunciation, I will enjoy. What he said?
Well, Yadu wants, he's supposed to, Lord Krishna is going to come in the Yadu dynasty. So, Yadu has to get married, he has to have a child for the Lord to come. And if Yadu takes old age, then it will delay the Lord coming. But if Yadu goes ahead and immediately enters into grihastha life and has children, then the dynasty can be quicker. But if he has to take the old age and delay the whole thing, and then come back later on, Yayati will give back the old age and take the old, and he'll get back his youth, and then have children. That will take some time for all that to happen. So Yadu wanted that the Lord should come quickly. He wants to make arrangements for the Lord coming in his dynasty, so he should get married and he should have the children now, not wait till let Yayati enjoy first. let Yayati have his pleasure, and then come back, and then change again, give the old age to Yayati and take it back his youth. That will all take some time. You understand?
Yes, Maharaj. So it's a religious principle.
Yeah.
That
Oh, yeah. It's a religious principle. He knew what he was doing. He knew Dharma. But the other brothers, you will see, they're not like that. And Prabhupada talks about that they said this Yadu, he was like the four Kumaras. The four Kumaras refused the order of their father Brahma for the sake of a better cause. They wanted to completely devote themselves as brahmacharis. So they refused their father's order that was not irreligious. It was for a higher purpose. So similarly, Yadu, when he refused his father, it was for a higher purpose. So then Yayati, he goes to his other sons. And the other sons means also the sons of Sharmista. They're not all Devayani's sons. He goes to Turvasu, Druya, Anu, to exchange their youth for his old age. But because they were unaware of religious principles, they thought that their flickering youth was eternal. And therefore they refused to carry out their father's orders. In other words, they just wanted to enjoy eternally. They didn't want to be bothered with old age, which is inevitable for everyone. Old age is inevitable. So then Yayati requested the youngest, Puru, and he's younger than these three brothers, but more qualified. And he said, my dear son, do not be disobedient like your elder brothers, for that is not your duty. So Puru, he's actually also a son of Sharmista. He says, oh, your majesty, who in this world can repay his debt to his father? By the mercy of one's father, one gets the human form of life, which can enable one to become an associate of the Supreme Lord. So this is religion, the debt to the father, to repay the debt to the father. By the father's mercy, you get the human form of life. And with the human form of life, we can have an opportunity to go back to Godhead.
But by the mercy of Krishna, we have been given human form of life.
Yes, that's a higher understanding.
Okay.
It's a higher understanding. But here is giving credit to the Father. Ultimately, Father, he's only an instrument in the service of Krishna. But in ordinary society, we have to give respect to the Father. It's a rare soul who understands that Lord Krishna is the real cause. So if people have developed a higher consciousness, then they can understand these things. The human body is obtained by the grace of the Father. Everyone is indebted to his Father. Of course, in other lives, one also gets a father and mother. Even cats and dogs have fathers and mothers. But in the human form of life, father and mother can award their son the greatest benediction by teaching him to become a devotee. When one becomes a devotee, he achieves the greatest benediction because he completely averts the repetition of birth and death. Therefore, the father who trains his child in Krishna consciousness is the most benevolent father in this world. Janami janabi sabi pitamata paya Krishna guru nahi mili bhaja hariyai. Everyone gets a father and mother, but if one gets the benediction of Krishna and Guru, he can conquer material nature and return home back to Godhead. Right? Everyone has got a mother and father. Prabhupada's quoting this Bengali saying. Even the insects have got mothers and fathers, the dogs and everybody. But the real fortunate person has got Guru. By the grace of Guru, you get Krishna and can go back to Godhead. So it's not just having a father. But still, father is important. We have to respect them. Father is like Guru. If the father is fallen, then you don't have to bother. But if the father is a devotee, just like Prabhupada was born in a devotee family, so his father trained him to be devotee. And similarly, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is born in a devotee family. His father was Bhaktivinoda Thakur. His father trained him. So if you're fortunate to be born in a devotee family, then from childhood you can be trained as a devotee. And Puru continues speaking to his father. He said, when the son can understand what his father wants him to do, then that son is first class. But one who has to act only after the father's orders come, then that's second class. And one who follows the father's order reluctantly, that's third class. But a son who refuses his father's order, that is like stool, like his father's stool. So Yayati is saying, I'm not first class. He said, I could not understand your desire. But he said, now you're asking me. He said, then at least I'm second class. I'm not first class, but at least I'm second class. He said, I do not wish to become the lowest type of son who is compared to the father's stool. And Prabhupada talks about the son, and the son is Putra. Putra means the one who will save the father from going to hell. But if the son is not a devotee, then fathers think better Mutra. Mutra means urine. Both the son and the urine come from the same place. So if the son is not a devotee, it's better to have urine. So the son of Puru was very pleased to take the old age of his father. And Yayati took the youth of his son and enjoyed this material world as he required. So King Yayati was the ruler of the entire world, 7 islands, and he ruled the citizens like a father. Because he had taken the youth of his son, his senses were unimpaired, and he enjoyed as much material happiness as he desired. So he ruled the whole world, 7 islands, the whole planet. And because he's young, he's energetic, and he's enjoying a lot of material happiness. So the chapter goes on, in secluded places, engaging her mind, words, body, and various paraphernalia, Devayani, the dear wife of Yayati, always brought her husband the greatest possible transcendental bliss. King Yayati performed various sacrifices in which he offered abundant gifts to the Brahmanas to satisfy the Lord, who is the reservoir of all the demigods and the object of Vedic knowledge. The Supreme Lord Vasudeva, who created the cosmic manifestation, exhibits himself as all-pervading, like the sky that holds clouds. And when the creation is annihilated, everything enters into the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and varieties are no longer manifested. Sukadeva Goswami is describing like this. So the Lord, the goal of life is to surrender to Krishna, cultivate knowledge. It takes a long time, and such a soul is very rare. The Lord, Supreme Lord Vasudeva, is the Supreme Brahman, the Absolute Truth. He is the beginning and the end, and He is situated in everyone's heart. All material manifestations are temporary. Dreams, illusions, mental creations, all material creation is temporary. But Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the eternal truth. So Maharaj Yayati, although he is very lusty, enjoying sense gratification, but at some point he gives up his material desires and he worships the Supreme Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart as Narayan and is invisible to material eyes, although existing everywhere. So that is the position of the Lord. He's everywhere in everything, but He's not visible to material eyes. So Maharaj Yayati, externally, he was very fond of material enjoyment. He was very attached. But internally, he would think of becoming an eternal servant of the Lord. So he was actually very pious also. Internally, he's thinking like that. And although he was the king of the whole world, he engaged his mind and 5 senses in enjoying material possessions for 1,000 years, but he was unable to be satisfied. It's the nature of the senses, material senses. You can never satisfy them. So, senses can be purified if we use our senses in Krishna consciousness. We have to give up all material designations. We have to stop identifying with this material world. The more we think of the material world, more we'll want to enjoy. But when we get some spiritual realization, and when we identify ourselves as a servant of the Lord, then our senses can be immediately purified. So this engagement of the purified senses in the service of the Lord is called Bhakti, or devotional service. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchate. One may enjoy the senses for many thousands of years, but unless one purifies the senses, one cannot be happy. So this is the end of chapter 18. Okay, we'll stop here, ask if there's any questions. Maharaj Yayati, famous personality. So, number 1 son Yadu, the Yadu dynasty, prayed by Queen Kunti, because Lord Krishna appears in the Yadu dynasty. Any questions? Paramakaruna Prabhu?
Yes, Maharaj. So, we're hearing of all these Kshatriyas, Yayati being one of them. Now, we hear that they engage with many women, maybe have even many wives, many children. But at the same time, we hear that they are very powerful, and they still maintain their position, they still maintain their strength. So just wondering, how is that possible? Because again and again we hear when someone engages in that way, then one loses one's memory, one loses one's intelligence, one loses one's strength. One loses everything, and basically, they become, mad, stupid. That's what we hear when one engages in heavy sense gratification. But these personalities, including Arjuna, had so many wives. Bhima and so on and so forth. They still maintain their power, they still maintain their position, they still maintain their strength. So how do we understand that?
Well, you have to understand that while they had wives, they didn't have unrestricted sense gratification with their wives. They would have union with the woman at a time when she could conceive a child. So they would have union maybe once in a year. So their relationship with their wives would be like that. It would be according to religious principles. What you see today, you're talking about people, they lose their strength, use them, because they have so much unlimited sense gratification. They want to have sex every night. My God, they're so mad for sex. And they want to have union with their wives all the time. They don't control the sex urge. This is the difference. But these kings, they would not discharge semen without having a child. They would not waste their semen. You understand?
Mm-hmm. Maharaj, just kind of like looking at the kind of like the modern kind of research, modern kind of thinking, and so on. Sports people, people in the academic world, so on and so forth. They say that at the moment there is no evidence that when one engages in this way, actually one becomes any less physical in terms of physical power, or mentally any less. There's no evidence, and it's not shown even in the sports world or even in the academic world, that it actually affects one mentally or physically when one engages in sense gratification. The only way it affects one is when one becomes addicted, and then mentally also because of some kind of impressions that they have in their mind. So sometimes they may mentally feel guilty or even torture themselves mentally, but there's no physical or there's not really any evidence according to anything, because if there were, then the sports people and so on, they'll be very, very careful, right? Because they spend several hours a day training for an Olympic event, and after 2 years or 3 years, that's going to happen. So just wondering your thoughts on that, Maharaj.
Yeah, my thought is that some people may think it doesn't matter, but there are people who, they know it does matter. Just like Muhammad Ali, he was a famous boxer, and he was very careful before a big fight. He would be very careful, keep away from women. People don't understand that the semen is transformation of blood. And Prabhupada explains that it takes 30 drops of blood to make 1 drop of semen. And it takes 30 mouthfuls of food to make 1 drop of blood. So when people actually discharge their semen, they're losing their blood. And they do become weak. They do become physically weak. not only do they become physically weak, but they become also mentally weak. The power of concentration and meditation. Somebody who is practicing celibacy, they're much more able to concentrate and focus the mind and control the mind. But when a person is engaging in acts of sense gratification, then their meditation is going to be constantly disturbed. Yeah? Okay? Prabhu?
Thank you much.
I mean, if you listen to these people, they'll tell you, oh yeah, you can eat everything, you can eat meat, oh you can drink, oh you can have sex all you want. They tell you all these things, you know, it's all bogus, it's all nonsense. But if you actually look at the lives of people, you know, who actually control their mind and senses, they have a much better life. You're much better, much safer to stay away from all of these things.
I just wanted to add that, you know, science may not have proved the fact that, you know, abstinence makes you, it nourishes the brain. But even in today's world, as devotees, we can see the evidence. Like, as grahastas, so many of us are trying to revise shlokas and learn them, and we forget them. But if we compare ourselves to the brahmacharis in the movement, their just is so powerful, their memories are so sharp, their effulgence, like that you can see those that are in saffron, you can see that there is some effulgence that is there in their face that is not there in the grahasta. Even if a grahasta is only engaging for children, still the same level of kind of tejas that a brahmachari has is not there in a grahasta. So science may not have discovered it or may not be able to find any evidence, but I've seen it. My husband, we've spoken about this loads of times. Ladies who are married, we speak about it all the time. We just like, it's incomparable. Like from last year in our Bhakti B.V.V, there was one brahmachari, in 2 or 3 days, he learned 20 verses and he would give his 20 verse, like a thing. And even those who are grahastas, who are expert in learning shlokas, they can't keep up. If they do learn them, they can't remember them or retain that information. So I would just say, like, physically, I've seen the evidence. Even if I didn't have faith in scripture, I would say I've seen the evidence myself. That's there.
Thank you. Thank you for that message. Very kind of you. Very nice.
So the evidence is that they have sharp memories than the grihasthas.
Usually, yes. If they're strict brahmachari, controlling the mind, free from sense gratification, then it's easier to control the mind. We know Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he was a Naistika brahmachari, and he was very sharp. He had such a good memory, very powerful, could quote so many slokas.
But Maharaj, Prabhupada was also a grihastha. He had sharp memory.
Yes.
How we can distinguish?
Yes. Well, Prabhupada, at the same time, Prabhupada encouraged the devotees it's better not to marry. He went through it, he had children, and then he left it, right? He left it behind. He didn't continue with it. Yes, there are, among the Mahajans, there's 7, I think, are grihastas. 12 Mahajans, I think 7 are grihastas. So it's not wrong, you know, you can be a great devotee, you can have a good memory also, but you have to control the mind. You can't be too absorbed in thoughts of sense gratification all the time. And certainly not every brahmachari is able to have such a good memory that they can memorize so many slokas in a few days. Some people can do it, some people have a good memory. Not everyone, that's not really the qualification. We want to remember Krishna. We do want to bring the mind to Krishna. Okay?
Yes, Maharaj, thank you very much for giving so much services towards all of us. Maharaj, again we will meet in the next unit, next week.
Yes, next week we have to go on. Yeah.
Despite you are ill, you are still taking up classes.
What?
So it is, despite you are ill, your health is not well, still you are taking classes. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, nothing serious, I don't think. Nothing serious, just a little bodily disturbances. They come and go. Okay, and any other questions or comments, anything? If not, then we'll finish here tonight. Alright, so we'll see you on Monday.
Yes, Maharaj.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.